Welcome to Disruptor Confessions. I'm your host, John Ayers, and today we're talking about what happens when science meets creativity. Our guest is Emanuele Riccetti. He went from studying pharmacy in Italy to washing dishes in London, and today he's one of the most intriguing voices in AI filmmaking. Emanuele, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure, yeah.
So listen, first of all, where are we finding you? Where are you based today?
So right now I'm in Italy, but usually we live in Spain. We moved here 7 months ago. So new experience. You know, I've been living in London for 12 years almost. And so my wife, who's Spanish, decided that it was time for us to move back to Spain. And so we went to Madrid. Now, this week in particular, we're here in Italy. That's because my son has half term, so we're spending some time here with family.
Wonderful. So you're based in Spain, currently in Italy.
Yes.
So listen, let's ask you about that. So you mentioned London.
Yeah.
At the top, I mentioned pharmacy.
Yeah.
Like, tell us about your journey. How are you doing AI filmmaking based on your background? Just let's talk a little bit about how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I studied the art and design school in Italy. But then after graduation, I took some sort of a different study direction, and I ended up working in a pharmaceutical company in Italy. And that was quite innovative at that time. So that experience, I have to say, taught me a lot in terms of process and innovation. And it's something that now plays a big part in my AI approach. And then, you know, life sometimes threw some sort of unexpected challenges. And so I decided to leave. And barely speaking a very basic English, I decided to go to London. And that's where I started to like wash dishes and help waiters in a French restaurant in a very nice square called Sloane Square. And slowly, you know, my English got better. I started to meet cool people, went to a few events. Especially tech events. And that's where the first gigs started to come around, to the point that it became so demanding that became a job. So since like 4 years, at least 5 years, when the first diffusion model came out, the image model, Stable Diffusion, like I'm on top of AI like every single day. And so, you know, sometimes you never know where you're going, but you have to jump sometimes and just do it what you feel like you have to do.
Manuel, I love that. So your interest in creative and the art and design, you go to university, that takes you to this different path as you shared, and now you're back to kind of your roots and your foundation of your interest, but completely in a different space in this world of tech and AI. I actually first came across you and your name when I think you posted a piece called The Audition. And The Audition, if I recall, was two people in a conversation, interview, very close up, dramatic lighting, and it caught me by surprise because The Audition made me stop and think, wait a second, is this AI? It felt a little bit different. It felt like it was pushing AI further. So my first question is, do you remember the audition? And do you remember what tools you were using? Second question, how long ago was that?
As you know, this is an audition for a movie called Taxi Driver.
Yes, I know.
Let's take it from page 67, first line. Whenever you're ready, please go.
Are you talking to me?
Cut. Try to have a bit more empathy.
Okay.
I mean, you are frustrated with life. You are your own enemy. So when you say that line, are you talking to me? It's a man begging the universe for acknowledgement.
I'm a bit nervous.
Try again, please.
So there was 4 months ago, something like that. So right now is end of October. So yeah, it was probably May, June, something like that. And for example, if I was going to be doing the audition right now, I would use completely different tools that the one that I was using at the time. And also probably the outcome would be significantly better than the one that I achieved by that time. And this is due to the pace at which AI, especially in visual, is evolving so fast. And so that, yeah, well, that was 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and I used tools. One for lip sync was still around, still good, called Agent. And for images, I think I used Runway for that one, in particular because was the only tool that allowed at that time to have like consistency in the character in different scenes.
Oh, right. Real quick, can I ask
Yeah.
you about character consistency? That comes up a lot. That was a big challenge just 4 or 5 months ago, correct?
It was, yes, it was. And now it's not anymore. It is to some degrees, but at least in images is not that complicated as it was before. So now there are several tools, including the same Runway that does a great job. But Google released a model called Nano Banana, which is quite decent in that sense. There's a tool called Seedream, which does a very good job as well. A few days ago, a platform called Xfield, which is to me a very good platform, released a sort of, let's call it pipeline that is called Popcorn. I'm not really sure which model is behind because they didn't mention that, but it's very good in terms of consistency as well and in creating storyboards. So that's just a tool 3 days old, but it changed completely the flow.
If you were to do the audition today,
Yeah.
what tools do you think you might use?
So I would use Seedream and probably Xfield Popcorn, these two. I would leave the others out for the images. And for the video, probably I would use Kling 2.5 and maybe Veo, the new model 3.1.
Which is kind of crazy because if you think about if you were a filmmaker or producing commercials or shorts 30 years ago,
Yeah.
you probably would have been using the same tools for years, if not decades.
Yeah.
Now, every couple days, I mean, it used to be every couple months. Now it's literally every day.
Yeah, it's completely, it's like every day there's something, not every day, but let's say every week there is
Yes.
a jump. Okay. And usually the jump it's a big progress.
So let me ask you about your process.
Yeah.
When you think about the audition and thinking about redoing it if you were with new tools, you get the technical kind of know-how.
Yeah.
How do you approach a project? What is your process currently in your filmmaking from story to production?
So that really depends on, is a project that is a personal project or is a project that I do for work? Because when I do something for work, I sort of follow some storyboard and guidelines that are the clients. And so I adapt to those. But if this was just for me, like for example, the audition was, so usually the way I start is always by sketching a very, very rough storyboard. Like usually I'll do it on Procreate, like simple, super simple, but at least, you visualize the idea that you have in your head. And then once that storyboard rough version is done, I try to ask myself for each scene what is happening. Is the character talking? Are the character talking? Are the character moving? Is a close-up? Is not? So, and that's quite crucial because it gives me, not only to me, it gives us understanding on which model we should be using for that particular scene, because some models are very good with motion and some others are very good with maybe lip sync. And a few are good with both together. And so having that knowledge of the tools that are around right now is important because it lets you, craft your story and be much more efficient in that.
So right now I'm fascinated by the disruption that's happening in filmmaking, but I use the word filmmaking broadly because it could be for a TV commercial, for a product, could be for a short. And I think a lot of people are getting into this space. I think a lot of people think that it's just simply a prompt. How do you see AI filmmaking in terms of it being just a prompt or some of the things you just talked about? How do you see the process?
Well, I understand that some people may think that. And I am also supportive of that because, you see a lot of AI creators around that are introducing their sort of 5 second or 10 seconds or 15 seconds video by saying, look what I've done in 5 minutes. Okay, so when you feed the market with this sort of, continuous idea, well, someone that is outside of the AI community and look at that thinks, well, that's really what it takes then, 5 minutes and a single prompt. When in reality, to craft a story and to make it believable and to make it decent, because right now we can just call it decent, it takes much more. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes especially human crafting behind. And I really hope that this sort of human level crafting sticks around in the future, because what really makes the difference.
Well, some of the things you were just talking about, your process, where you think about, is this a wide shot? Is it a close up? Informs your tool, but you're still kind of thinking about the theme of the story underneath. And is that the nuance? Is that the human element you're talking about?
You want to create a video, you want to create your story. Okay. So for me, it's important that the idea is always yours. So it's something that starts from wherever, but from you. Okay. Your life experience, your dreams, whatever it is, but it's starting from you. You can use ChatGPT to help you in crafting like the story. But the essence and the meaning that is behind, for me, is very important, that as a human level. And also when it comes to defining the shots, because you would need to go from that rough sketch to a sort of a good image, like for each scene. And when it comes to that sort of crafting, understanding, do I want to have a close-up of this person talking, or do I want to have a long shot of this person talking and moving? Is really something that is yours, is your decision.
If I were to think through that with you, a little boy learning how to bicycle and his dad is in the background helping him learn how to bicycle and he falls, that would be the idea of a story. You would then do what with something like that? You would develop that?
Yeah.
Talk about your process of an idea, seed of an idea like that.
Well, so you have so how do we can approach this? So first of all, you have a dad and you have a little boy. So you need these two characters. The little boy is not ideal right now because most of AI tools, and quite frankly, rightfully, are very severe with children in AI, so they're blocking generation.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. For ethical and secure safety reasons.
Exactly. And I am totally on board on that. But let's suppose that this is not the case, and so we want to develop this sort of story. So you would need the dad character, so you will need a sort of close-up shot, a full body shot, a profile view, a back view. So you have few reference, and the same for the boy. And then you would need a street, a scenario with, for example, what's the weather looking like? Is it sunny? Is it rainy? Is it foggy? Is it not? Is it daytime? Is it morning? Is it night? Is it late evening? So figuring out all these sort of environment, these people around, our car around, there's danger, there's no danger. So these all scene that you're building in your head and then you're trying to build with images is extremely important. And once you have that nailed down, so you know exactly what's going on, then you can start working on the prompt. For example, I would imagine as a single initial prompt, establishing shot, maybe like a bird eye view of the street, okay, with the camera that is going on, and then cut with a close up on the little boy, sort of very, very close up, sort of struggling. You don't really know what's happening. And then maybe a back view of the dad from here, looking at this boy that is trying to go in the bike. So people understand that now the boy is struggling because he's learning how to go on the bicycle. And then from there, you can expand, like maybe a profile view of the boy that is slowly moving like that. And at some point, the dad is sort of smiling, and then the boy falls down and cries. So the dad runs and try to, you can really get extremely creative.
Thank you for doing that, because take AI out of it. What you just described is probably no different than what story makers, filmmakers have been doing for decades. Thinking about the emotion, thinking about the camera angle, thinking about the environment, the characters, the actors, the lighting, correct?
Yeah.
So none of that goes away.
No, at least if you want, because you can make choices in life and you can make choices in AI. You can decide to go like fully automate on that, and there are tools that are now able to not super nicely yet, but they will be able to fully automate the story for you.
Yeah.
So that's choices if you want to do it or not.
Thank you for walking me through that idea, and also the ethical side and safety side of AI. I think that's a
Yeah.
whole other conversation. It's interesting. I brought up an idea of a little boy because I wanted to ask you about an animated film. Your work, like I mentioned, the Audition is kind of more dramatic. I want to ask you about Sonata and AI Major, which was very cinematic. I want to ask you about an animated film. I studied Pixar. I studied their storytelling. I studied the kind of the basis behind it. I met some of the writers from Toy Story. So I'm really fascinated by Pixar over the years. You created a film, I think it's called Tim.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell us about your animated film, Tim.
You see that?
It's changing again.
Is it supposed to do that?
No, not at all.
It's glitching.
And spreading.
What is that?
It's like the sky's breaking apart.
No idea.
You're not gonna...
I have to.
Did we just say yes?
Well, so Tim was a sort of a different approach and an experiment. So I had the idea, and for a while, since probably many years, the idea, and this is really just the intro for it. There's all a story that unravels that can be extremely nice and engaging if I have time to develop it a bit more, or if someone that is watching wants to expand and develop, please do. But that was an experiment because Sora 2, which is the latest right now, late October model released by OpenAI, was just released 3-4 weeks ago, we're talking about. And so this model apparently was, and is quite good. So I wanted to test, but I didn't want to test it in a traditional way, just giving a single image, animate that, and that's it. I wanted to test it with a bit more sort of different approach. So in order to do that, since you cannot yet use Sora with realistic people, I thought about doing sort of a cartoony Pixar style adventure based on Tim. And so the way I approached that was still similar to the initial workflow that I have, but instead again of giving a single image, I gave a single image, but within the single image there were 4 images in between. So there was one character, another character, a scene, and another scene. And so I asked the model to sort of create a sequence of what was happening in that scene. For example, the establishing shot, there's this couple that are in their apartment room, and they're looking outside the window where there's sort of this dystopian, like reality, something is changing, something is glitching. And so the simple way I found to do it was really to feed the model with the single image with the 2 characters and the 2 scenes, the room and the street, and then ask Sora to create a sequence based on that. Now the sequence is 8 seconds long, and it took me probably like 50 or 60 different generation in order to then craft the final bit of the sequence. So I took a piece here, and then I combined them together and stitched them together, and I got the first 10 seconds of the short movie. And this was sort of the path, with the few exceptions in the scenes, but this was sort of the path of the whole minute and a half of Tim.
So on, like, at the very beginning, you said you fed in, like, I think 1 image, but then there was 4 images total. Is that correct? Like initially?
Yeah, it was 1 image. It's always 1 image, but instead of being 1 image that is a full image, it was 1 image with 4 small images inside. So the model received the 4, even though it's a single one.
How did you create that initial image that you brought into Sora?
What that was done probably was done so with a combination of mid-journey to start with the character base, and then a few refinements in Photoshop, manual editing, and then the final recraft probably was Seedream. I'm not remembering correct, or Flux or Seedream, one of the two.
And then the final animated film, Tim, the total length, how long is the total length of that? Do you remember?
I think it's 1 minute and 10 seconds, something like that. I'm not really remembering
So
correct.
what I love about your work, as I mentioned, the audition seemed to cut through. I always feel like AI, there's a veil or there's a film or some pane of glass between me and the art and what I'm watching. That is blurring very quickly over the last several months. I think the audition first did it for me. It was like, oh, this is getting closer to like taking that piece of glass away. And now it feels less AI. And to your point, if you were to do the audition, you would completely use different tools just a few months later. Then the movie, like the animated film Tim, it just made me smile. Just the quality of it and the animation. Now it's only a minute or so, but do you anticipate that animated films like that could be 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, a full feature?
Well, so that depends on, so right now they could be, if you spend a lot of time, yes, they could be. Like, for example, Tim may have taken me 3 days to do, which in this AI universe we live in is a huge time. Say, man, you did 1 minute in 3 days. Are you crazy? You could have done it in 10 minutes. Yes, I think going back to the initial point, the crafting is what is important. So 10 minutes, yes, you can do if you have, if you want to invest 2 or 3 weeks of your time into a work like that, you can do it. With a single prompt or with a multi-prompting technique right now, there's no way to do that. But there will be a way, probably. I would expect within maybe 1 year.
You're an interesting creator in that you have this art background, art and design, but you got into like the pharmaceutical space. So you kind of have a scientific, analytical side of you, because you just mentioned the craft. And I think I interpret the word craft as being very particular and specific, and that the details matter to you. However, there's a creative side of you that's all about the emotional storytelling.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about when AI is coming into that mix that you have, how do you balance that storytelling along with like the AI generated aspects? How do you balance that?
Well, so this is a very difficult question to answer, because there are lots of considerations that are going on. For example, I always aim to stay as close as possible to the storyboard and to the story that I have in my head. And so if that doesn't happen as a first or a second try, well, I would try to change approach and to be, extremely faithful to what I really want to do. But that brings sort of the topic to a different one, which is controllability, because it's not easy to control AI. And so especially in videos. In images is sort of almost they crack the code in that sense, but in video not yet. So if you want a particular movement of the camera, or if you want something that is happening while there is a particular movement of the camera, it's really tricky to do that. Luckily, there are a few tricks, like, for example, using a first frame and the last frame and interpolating between. And so that is helpful because you have more control, because you put your first point A control and the second point B control, and you say, okay, you have to go from here to here following these rules. And so AI try, and most of the time succeed after a few tests, to do what you want. But it's not easy. And that in my head make me think that if it's not easy to control AI in videos, can you imagine, John, how difficult it is to control AI like in other fields, much more dangerous fields? And so
And
that
well-
brings, a lot of other
Well,
questions.
yeah, right. The consequences of AI in other fields, in other industries, are more consequential, right? The consequences are more severe and extreme.
Yeah.
AI filmmaking, maybe it's not the best shot. Maybe there's some challenges. I was thinking about what you were just describing, maybe the first frame, the last frame, and interpolating, trying to figure out what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And you mentioned 3 days for like a 1-minute film called Tim.
Yeah.
If we were taking our boy on the bicycle and the father trying to learn, the boy's trying to learn how to ride in an environment on a street, and you wanted to move the camera, maybe you're the director and you wanted to move the camera, that's not just trying to figure out the prompt or the first frame, last frame. That's literally physically like changing the whole thinking around the background, the scene, the lighting, the grip, the sound, if there's a dolly for the camera, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And that's where it gets tricky. But again, so there are different approach that you can take. And one, as I said, is this first frame. Like for example, if you want to go from a very long shot of the little boy on the bike and go to a close-up, well, you start the first frame as a long shot and the second as a close-up, and you ask very kindly to AI to, do this movement with the camera. And probably you will be successful on that. But still, there's not much controllability out of this, because AI decided the path. What if you want to have an S movement in between? Because you need it. So that's more challenging. There are tools, like a very interesting tool model called Mary, Marey, from Moon Valley, which I had the pleasure to test, and it's still in early days. Very early days, but it's extremely promising, and which sort of tick different boxes. One is the ethic use of AI, because they train the model with their own legit data, so they're, it's super safe. But they have these, I would say is a 4D Gaussian splatting. Don't quote me on that, but I'm quite confident it is, where basically you feed the video that you have. Let's suppose this movement from long shot to close up of the little boy. And then it recreates the scene in a sort of a 3D environment thanks to this Gaussian splatting technique. And then you can manipulate the camera movement in between. And so maybe you can create the S movement that you want to create, for example, and then regenerate that scene. And so for the missing pixel, the model will create them, but will create them being faithful to the original pixel that you fed to it.
You're crafting your story, but balancing it against the tools. And just in listening to you, the tools are coming out of the market so fast. Some, seemingly, what I'm hearing is some are very good in some areas and others are good in other areas. So you're having to assemble, probably not unlike other industries, even traditional filmmaking or storytelling, trying to figure out the right tools for the specific goal. It's fascinating to see, as you mentioned, the pace of change. Can I ask you about what you shared earlier? And I was asking about, is a simple prompt good enough for AI filmmaking? And you said, well, I spent 3 days just on the animated short Tim, which is just a little over a minute. Are you worried? Are you concerned, and how so, about the flood of AI-generated creative slop?
The fact that there is some sloppy AI content still, it means that there's a market for it. What bothers me really is the low effort content. When low effort content slop goes viral, more than something that has been crafting even traditionally for maybe a month or 2 months. And that's what is a bit upsetting, because you see something that is sloppy, done probably in 5 minutes, that gets more success than something that has been crafted and thought through. So, but there are users that are liking this AI slop. And so, for example, when you go on Sora.com, you would expect to only see AI videos. And you may like it or not, but you know that if you go there and you go in the feed, they're just AI videos. While if you go on YouTube, you get a bit of both. You get real videos, you get AI video, you get AI Slop. So in my view, I would say that probably in the future, they will come up with some sort of filtering toggle button, something that, do you want to see AI content or you just don't want to see AI content? Because that can be useful. Some users really like AI content, and some AI content is extremely useful too. But some users just don't, and so they don't want it. So it's good, trying to make like everybody happy if we can.
I have not heard that concept. I think it's brilliant. A toggle that says I want AI generated content. I don't, or I understand maybe there's a third that it's a mix and I won't know.
Yeah.
Having a filter, not just in AI film and AI creative, but just in general, would be incredibly helpful. I think it's been a challenge not to get into the ethical side of AI or safety side of content and creative development. I think that is a risk and a challenge. I think one of the things I'm seeing here is the word authenticity comes to mind. We are now in an era that's moving faster than things we probably have ever experienced. It took years or decades for other capabilities to mature over time. Now things are moving at such a blinding pace. Can I ask you, how does authenticity play here in an era where I would say anybody can create anything with a prompt? Where does authenticity play a role in your mind?
Well, so mediums, are evolving. So they always have evolved. And so AI is here and is probably here to stick around for a bit. So the authenticity, it really comes, it should be linked to humans. So it really comes when there's human crafting behind. And so that is authentic. There is intent behind, there is some creativity behind, there is some discipline behind through the process. And if that disappears, well, you sort of lose the purpose, And so it's, if that disappears, it's much better to have everything automated, and who cares, who's going to watch it? So I think that still, everything, when you go on this sort of platform and you look at videos, you really look at videos because that there is some sort of intent behind, there is some sort of story behind, and there's some sort of a human that wants to communicate something with something that he creates with his art or with his way to express himself. And also, this is all of a very sensitive topic, frankly, because there are a lot of things that are not clear, like there's not much regulation, it's not clear where the data is coming from for some models. So it's also difficult to take a position here because it's true one side and it's false one side, and also the opposite is true and false. So we're sort of staying in between and waiting for, have some clarity around before taking a final position on that.
So you're already seeing a demand for AI filmmaking, but also advertising, commercials. Is that right?
Yes, it is crazy right now.
Where are you seeing more demand right now? What part of the business in AI creative are you seeing the most demand?
So usually when it comes to film industry, less. And less because, so a film, if you jump on a big project, a movie is 90 minutes at least. So it's a big project, it's a long-term project. While commercials, they're firing up, bam, bam, bam on social super fast. So it's a 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 15 seconds. And so everybody has a business. Everybody's selling something, whether it's like, your knowledge or your bottle of water. To stay in the market and on socials, you have to produce content. And before, that content was, as many images and cool images as you could produce of your water bottle, like in different scenes. And you can do that right now with AI super, super easy. But that is already, sort of old style. And so now it's video. So create a cool commercial with that. And so like everybody's trying right now to make great commercial with their bottle of water, for example. And so these will become old soon. And I'm not sure what is going to be next.
So let me ask you about another piece that I saw of yours.
Yes.
I think it's called Sonata in AI Major, which I just love the title. Can you talk a little bit about that piece as well and how long
Which one? Sorry.
I
Oh, the
think
Sonata. Oh, the
yeah,
Sonata.
Sonata.
Yeah. Oh,
How
yeah.
long ago was that? What tools do you use? I just thought that was it was another step forward for what
Yeah.
I've been seeing in the market. What did you use? What was the basis of that piece?
I can sing, I can sing. Look at my mouth. I can sing.
Check out my head, moving fine. Look at my teeth, all in line.
I can sing, I can sing. Look at my hair, watch it swing. How about my eyes, do they shine?
Am I real enough this time?
We can sing, I can sing. I'm so real, but
So that was 2 months ago, and 2 months ago, and so actually that one got nice awards because I sent it over in Italy to big contest called Imagine Action, which is a music contest that's happened in Italy in Ravenna every year, and this year they this AI section. So I sent my piece, and I actually made it to the top. So very happy to be there. So there was a model called Pika Labs, is the company that produced that model. Now we have VO 3.1. Probably when people are watching, we will have VO 7 or whatever. Like, but the point is, there were not many models that can compete with VO3 lip sync, and so these Pika Labs came out, and Agent was already out as well. It was doing a good job, but I wanted to test this one, and also it was quite decent in keeping the background good enough and don't mess it too much, while the previous version of Agent with the background wasn't great. Now it's better. And so I used that one, and the idea was to make something musical. And so, but I want to make everything with AI. So I went to a website that is a very good website for AI music called Suno, which probably everybody knows.
Yes.
And I spent a few days thinking about what I can do. What could be, a little bit different than a classic like music video that everybody's trying to do now. And so the opera thing sort of came in my head, and a good way to sort of express this was to have lyrics that was quite frankly not that refined, but at the same time funny enough to let people know that we are AI, but we can also sing. And so I made this song about we can sing, and then I structure all the characters and all the scenes, and it has to happen in a theater. There's a director that, so, and this as is very cool, and I think it's one of the shorts that I would pick as a top 3 for what I've done, because it's very nice.
So let's just think about that. Normally, when you talk to a creator, a filmmaker, a documentary, a director, producer, they talk about a project they did last year or a couple of years ago, something they're working on for next year. Just in the few minutes we've talked, we've spoken about a half dozen projects, either that you've completed or you're working on, all within a few months, within a few 4 or 5 months. You're producing a lot of content. I think it's fascinating how much content individual creators can produce, such as yourself. I love how you're kind of going from, film, animated, inspired by music and the Sonata piece. I think also I'm hearing you're kind of trying new tools. Was the idea for Sonata to enter into the film festival in Italy, or was that not the idea? Was that the basis?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I didn't even know about that by that time. So it was mostly to, try
Yeah.
something new, to experiment on something new, and also put yourself sort of out of the comfort zone that you have, because I was quite decent in doing like close-ups and small talk and this sort of stuff, but I haven't tried to do a music video that was also synced and moving and nice. And so I said, well, let's give it a go. And
Emanuele, you said 5. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
no, I finished. I said, let's give it a go, and and try to push it out and see if it's good just for me or also good for others.
And then you thought, well, this is something. Then you saw, I'll enter this, and then you did very well.
Yeah, exactly.
The festival. Yeah.
You figure it out. You figure it out.
So I want to ask you, like, I think you mentioned it was about 2018, like 5, 6, 7 years ago that you kind of really started getting into this. And then 4 years ago, you really jumped in. So it's not been 20, 30 years. So you're fairly new into the AI creative space. But even having said that, you're very early on compared to many who are just now exploring it.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. So I'm old as I can be to be in the AI industry, because I started really when the first model was called Stable Diffusion from Stability
Right.
AI. And when it arrived publicly in the market, it wasn't great compared to what we have now, but it was great compared to what we had before. And so a lot of creative idea popped in my head and started to jump out and scream and say, why don't we do this, we do that. So that's why I started to push it with Stable Diffusion. And with me, there were like a few, probably 10 people that I met at that time that are still around today, and they're exactly the same today as I am doing. So they got sort of obsessed in a good way and we've got sort of obsessed in a good way with AI. And luckily, because I'm very happy to what I have achieved so far, and I hope this can just keep going. And if you are a person that decided to start now, I know it can be like overwhelming, and it can be be difficult to understand everything that is going around. But for example, like what you are trying to do with your podcast, and what many people are trying to do with their courses or their video explainer, is extremely helpful, because simplify the process. And you just have to start simple, easy, and be comfortable with yourself, and don't try to do too much. Just chill down, be Italian a bit. Yeah, chill down.
I love it. So there's definitely some people watching and listening to this that maybe they played with ChatGPT, maybe they have creativity and they produce a lot of creative content now, still video, film, TV, advertising. What tools would you say that someone who's just now exploring AI creative, AI tools, where should they start?
So if you're really just starting right now, so I would say there are a few safe places where you can go, and they're fairly user-friendly. And so for images, Midjourney is extremely popular. Probably everybody has heard of it. And is a platform that allows you to create great images. And they have different, tools. For example, consistency, although not super good yet, the consistency one, but they have video models, which is also very good, and different styles. You can apply the style of an image into the style of another, or mix and blend and do a lot of stuff, create moon boards of your sort of preferred style for your image, and then use that moon board to drive the content of another new image. So really is extremely creative as a platform, and it's very simple to use, and frankly also quite convenient in terms of money, because it's not very expensive, especially if you're doing this just to explore a bit. When it comes to video, it's a bit more complicated, because there are a lot of different models that are trying to take the market, and so the big ones are Google and OpenAI. So Google is called VO 3.1, and they released it 2 weeks ago, probably 10 days ago. And the other model is called Sora 2 from OpenAI, which has a basic Sora 2 version and a Sora 2 Pro version, which clearly is a bit more expensive, although it doesn't deliver a much better result, in my opinion. And so these two video models are the one you really want to play with, especially VO, in my opinion, if you're starting. And then there are platforms that are sort of a conglomerate of many tools from images and video. And one of my favorites is Xfield, because it has most of the image generation model, excluding Midjourney, because Midjourney doesn't have an API, and so third-party platform cannot use their model. But as like most of the image model and most of the video models, and all in there, so you don't have to go anywhere else. You're there, you do your stuff. And another extremely good platform is Runway. And Runway has been like from the very beginning. I'm very linked emotionally to Runway because I started with Runway as well.
Yep.
And so from the very beginning they push, and they try to push every month. They come up with new ideas, with new models. They have their own models, so they don't have other models in their platform, but they have a very good image generation model, very cinematic. But again, you can have different style on it. And they have their own video models. And recently they made an update, very interesting update. They have a model that is good for editing called Aleph. And you can make changes on top of a video that is of a footage that already exists. For example, remove an object or make it nice.
Right. I heard about
This
that.
sort
Yeah.
this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're really pushing it. And the CEO is extremely smart. And I think that this is definitely one company that is here to stick in the future.
So it's funny you mentioned Midjourney. So I was playing around with Dolly, like right when Dolly came out, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And I'm an old Photoshop guy. But then when Midjourney came out, it kind of like blew my mind. It just completely changed the landscape. I have kind of played with Google VO, a little bit of Sora 2. I haven't played with Runway. I hear Runway come up a lot, Hello and others. Those are some of the core tools that you're using. Certainly you're saying those are the core ones someone should start out with. Can I ask you about what are some of the mistakes that people who are just getting into this, what mistakes do you see them making?
The pre-mistakes is, as we discussed before, thinking that one prompt equals to a short film. So that's the wrong approach. So getting into this, if you really want to, test, experiment, waste time, and to some degree waste money as well, because this is not free. So it's not super expensive, but it's not free. And then mistake-wise, I don't know. I'm not really in the position to judge other people's work, and I don't like to do that. So I think that when someone is putting a content out on social, for them, like for me, is good enough. Then there's always someone that is much better and with much experience that is going to look at that and say, well, this is not that good. But who cares? Because if it's good for you, if you feel that you've done a good job, well, that's good enough.
I love it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm also seeing, and I want to ask your thoughts on this, is there are definitely schools of thought or camps of people who are all in on AI, people who will never touch it, and then somewhere in between, there's people who are trying to figure out where they think they live or where they want to move forward. How do you see what I would call traditional creators collaborating with AI instead of competing with it?
No, I think that's the right approach. Like, for example, what I'm doing right now with this, for this movie that we're making, we're having this hybrid approach. Okay, so where we use real actors, real footage to drive the performance of the AI actor. And so this sort of combination is extremely interesting because, you catch two birds with one stone, basically, because you're using AI, but you don't fully use AI. You still value the human acting performance, which is core and which is unbeatable right now, and hopefully will be unbeatable in the future as well.
Right.
So I push AI, fully AI, 100%, but to the point that you're not there yet to be on the human level performance, and I really hope we will never be, because we need this sort of hybrid approach for some scenes. But when you have a scene that is a big landscape and beautiful, that could cost like thousands of dollars to make in CGI or to make it in real life shooting, well, that's where AI is extremely useful for me. And also, if there's like this little boy and the dad that are going on the bike and they're far away, oh, good, we can use it full AI. But when you want to see this little boy crying, well, you want to see the real way a human cries, and you want to see it driven by a real human. So this sort of hybrid approach it's extremely interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that already. That's not the
Yes.
future. You're seeing that.
Yeah. I've seen it, tons of it already. Yes.
I was just talking to someone about, this, we're coming into this AI revolution. And I basically said, no, we're in it right now.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about different tools.
Yes.
There isn't just one tool that does everything. What tools
Yes.
right now, or features or capabilities, what tools can you not live without right now?
Well, so let's take this example. If we were making this short movie of the little boy and the dad, I said I would use Seedream and I would use Veo, and I would use as a platform to do edits and stuff, Runway. So these are the three tools that for me are extremely interesting right now. But again, there are, like, for example, take another model called Kling. Kling is very good, very, very good. It does this first frame and frame very smoothly. Veo 3.1 does also very good first frame and frame, but Kling is a bit better. But the advantage of using Veo 3 is a bit worse, but you can add dialogues in between those two frames, while you cannot do that on Kling. So if you have a scene that maybe has no dialogues and you want a better performance, well, use Kling. But if you want the little boy to say, hey, Dad, my knee hurts, well, then maybe use Veo. So it's important to have this knowledge, because it helps you, to be faster and more efficient and to deliver sort of a better result at the end.
Seems like you're curious. You're always curious. So you're like, what does that one do? How can I try that? Which I love. I'm going to ask you a difficult question, but I am curious in one word, Emanuele. In one word, how would you describe AI filmmaking?
Accessibility.
Interesting. I love it. I love it. Why would you say that?
Well, because he opens the scene. Like, imagine you are, you're dreaming. It doesn't matter if you are 12 or you are 75. You're dreaming about doing something. You want to create something. And before, with traditional way of shooting or making a music video or making a video, a normal movie or whatever. So you needed to have a crew, you needed to have location, you needed to invest a lot of money, and so how many gave up? How many say, well, I'll do it tomorrow? And right now, this accessibility allows you to do it today and to do it fast and to learn and to get better and to and let other people know that you did.
Opportunity.
Yeah. Opportunities are there, are accessible. Yeah.
Go back 10 years, it would be completely different conversation. I'm going to ask you to go forward. It's 2035.
Yeah.
And people look back and talk about this time in history.
Yeah.
What will people say looking back at this time 10 years from now?
Well, so hopefully they will say, oh, look, he still has dark hair in his head. even 10 years after. So that would be, I would love that, but I'm not sure it will happen. But what they will say, well, they will say, like, they probably nothing changed. So nothing changed in my opinion in this sort of evolution. What's happened if we look back at 2015 right now, and we have some criticism, you know? So what's if the people in 2015 look at 2005? There's criticism as well. So, and these will happen in 10 years. And this is sort of the path that we've always been on. And so, and I think is really the useful path that we've always been on, because it's the one that keeps, evolving. Right. So hopefully it will stay the same in the next 10 years as well.
Well, you've got an interesting journey, as we talked about at the top of the call. What's been your biggest lesson through your personal experience and your journey?
Well, that you have, to keep exploring, John, like keep trying new stuff, don't be scared. Who cares about, just do it. If it feels good for you, just, do it every day at your own pace. Learn and leave space for experimentation and making mistakes. Now, I'm not in the position to give advice to anybody, and I'm not in the position to, these sort of quotes that you read somewhere and say, you learn from mistakes, not from success. Well, but it's true. Make a lot of mistakes and try to, learn from them, and sooner or later you will be eating a good success.
I think it's about that word being curious. I think that's part of who you are. You're curious, you're trying things, you're okay with making mistakes, which I think is a valuable asset.
Yeah.
Listen, we're talking a lot about things moving fast. Before we wrap up here, I wanted to just ask you, how do you stay grounded in the pace of change that we're experiencing?
Well, it can be very overwhelming sometimes. So, but you don't need to know like everything about AI, to do your job well or to do your personal project well. Like obsession is becoming a bad habit very easily. So you just have to do your own pace. Stay at your own pace, as we said before. Like do what you feel like you want to do it, and you never arrive. In life in general, you never arrive. So there's always something that you can be more. You can achieve a next milestone. So keep going. Keep going.
What are you driving towards? What does success look like to you?
For me, it's about like leaving sort of a mark. Like, let's say we're looking in 10 years, like you asked before, in the future. Like I really would like for my footsteps to be still visible there, and so don't disappear. And sometimes it's something that, you struggle very much, at least from my personal life, and thinking about how everything can be super easily forgotten. So how about the other day I was looking at the video on YouTube Shorts, and there was this guy that made these quotes about, I don't remember the story of my great-grandfather. And probably you do not as well, and I don't as well. And so I don't want to be the great grandfather that gets forgotten in the future. So probably nobody wants to be that. So having the opportunity to leave a footstep right now is really the best gift that we can have. And so just that's what success is for me.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I can't thank you enough for joining. Really inspiring and certainly informative. You shared a lot about just some of the tools you're using, your process, certainly your journey from your background to now. I love it. It sounds like you're in demand, not just in your own personal work, but in commercial demand, meaning film, TV, advertising.
Yeah.
Where can anybody find you? Where can listeners who are watching this, where can people find you and your work?
Well, look, on LinkedIn, usually that's where people is. I have several accounts on X and on Instagram, but I don't like to advertise myself much.
Yeah,
So
no, it's great.
if you want to get in touch with me, I'm very happy to have a chat with everybody for job related or non-job related stuff, by the way. And so you find me on LinkedIn, and
That's where I found you. I think we connected on LinkedIn exactly. And then I started looking you up, and I was quite impressed. And that's why I reached out to see if you'd be interested in joining. So
I'm very honored to be part of this podcast.
I can't thank you enough. Thanks for taking the time, Manuel. I really appreciate it. Good luck with all your work. We will definitely keep an eye on your work and your creative process. I do want to thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much, John, and good luck really to everyone that is watching and not watching. So keep going.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice. I think those of you who are watching, listen, reach out to Manuel if you've got questions. He's shared a lot of great details. If you have watched, thanks for joining us on Disruptor Confessions. Please subscribe to us on Substack. And for future conversations, be sure to join us at YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are Disruptor Confessions. Thanks again.